I'm so excited to announce my first Procreate brush set in over 2 years, the Retro A-Go-Go Halftone brush set. And honestly, this isn't just a halftone brush set. This is a retro illustration toolkit built from the ground up to give your artwork that perfectly imperfect vintage vibe. I spent over the past year perfecting this release, and I'm happy to say it officially launches today on Gumroad and Etsy. The links are down in the description below. So if you want to make art that looks like this, or even this, keep watching to learn what's included. This pack comes with 480 halftone brushes. You get dots, lines, and shader brushes. First up, the dots come with base dots, regular offset dots, and then 45 and 145 degree diagonal offset dots. The halftone brushes also come with different densities ranging from 10 to 90%, which gives you more saturated results. So to illustrate this, we're gonna start out with a 10% density, and then we're gonna lay down our first row of dots. Then I'm gonna switch over to the 20% base dot brush and then lay down color next to our first row. So you can kind of see as the percentage increases, the dot size increases and makes our work look darker. Then as we continue to lay down our rows, you can see how each percentage increase affects the outcome, ending then at 90%. Next up, let's go ahead and look at how the offset dots work. So the grain of these brushes have 100% seamless global alignment, which means that if you lift your pencil, the pattern's gonna continue right where you left off. This also allows you to combine 2 or more brushes to get all new, perfectly aligned patterns. So if we add the offset plus dot to our base dot, you're gonna see that we get a more condensed spacing between our dots. When we add a diagonal offset dot to our base dot, we get these ridged diagonal lines. And then if we add the opposite offset diagonal dot to those, you'll see we get this nice starburst pattern. Then if we go back up here to our brushes and add that offset plus dot back in, we get this super tight pinhole dot pattern. Let's go ahead and clear those out back to our base dot, and then we can go down to our horizontal lines and add those in to see what we get. And then we can keep experimenting by adding in vertical lines for another all new pattern. And then we can keep stacking brushes on top of brushes, so adding diagonal lines once again gives us a perfectly aligned pattern that's going to be totally different from the previous ones. In addition to the regular halftone brushes, you also get shader versions of every single brush. So to show this off, let's go ahead and lay down base dots on this circle clipping mask layer. Then let's switch over to our shaders and go with a 60% density, and then we can slowly build up shadows, adding to those initial base dots using these pressure sensitive brushes. If that's not dark enough, then we can switch over to 90% and make things a little bit darker still. Now, because of the way grain settings work on most all halftone brushes, not just these, the brushes themselves behave a little bit different than brushes you might be used to. The brush size slider only makes the shape of the brush bigger or smaller. It doesn't affect the size of the dots because that would throw off the ability to lay down patterns that match up. With other halftone brushes, if you need a smaller or larger dot, you have to go into the brush studio, go to the grain tab, and then adjust the scale of the grain to the size you want. This means if you change the grain for one brush, you're gonna have to go in and manually change the grain for all the brushes if you wanna keep the same seamless patterns that align correctly, but not with these brushes. So with my halftone brushes, I've made small, medium, large, and extra large versions of each set with grain scales that increase as you move from one set to the next. With these, you can quickly get bigger dots by moving to a larger size set, which makes using multiple size dots or lines on the same canvas super easy. Or if you want to change to a different size canvas, it means you don't have to manually change the grain scale of every single brush to match that new canvas. You can just pick the appropriate set. This is a huge time saver and makes sure that all of your brushes stay the same size and that your patterns always match up. In addition to the halftone brushes, you also get 14 bonus brushes. There's a smooth liner and also a rough liner to give you options for how your outlines look. And there's also a smooth blocking brush and a rough blocking brush for quickly laying down large areas of color. And then you also get 10 retro crack brushes to give your art that vintage feel. I personally like to use these as erasers in order to let the background show through my art. They're really perfect if you're making a PNG design with a transparent background for a t-shirt. The t-shirt color is going to show through the cracks and it's going to give that aged, worn effect to your designs. You're gonna get 5 different retro texture canvases. These come in rectangle and square layouts. And then I've also included standard and large sizes of these, as well as RGB and CMYK versions for a total of 40 canvases. And there's no AI here. All these were scanned from real world paper at 600 DPI. And I also personally created all the stains, the water damage, the scuffs, and the ink drops and splatters by hand. Then I scanned those in at 600 DPI as well to create all the vintage effects you see here. When you open your canvas, you'll see there's a group for the paper effects at the top, and then a layer to add your art to. So let's go ahead and let's paste some artwork in here. And then I'll just go ahead and get that positioned. With this group, you can customize every single detail you see here. There's dedicated layers for the distress effects, the highlights, and the shadows, which really lets you fine-tune the texture and dial in just the right amount of wear and age look based on the end result you're trying to get. You can even adjust the canvas texture itself to get everything just right. Then once you're happy with the settings, this is where I like to grab that retro crack brush as my eraser, just kind of finalize the design by adding that effect. And once again, you can see the difference these canvases make to your art by toggling that on and off. Finally, I've included 2.5 hours of video tutorials where we'll make this retro ice cream cone, this vintage looking owl, this kitchen sink scene, and a bonus halftone 3D text section. Plus, you're gonna get the line art for each of these to follow along with a curated retro color palette to help you make those perfect vintage color choices. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And of course, thank you in advance if you decide to pick up the pack featured in today's video. Your support means the world to me, so thanks again. I have a lot of fun making these packs and sharing them with you, but the thing I enjoy even more is seeing your artwork using these. So if you're on social media and you share your artwork on there, tag me at BeeJayDeL so I can check out what you guys make using the pack featured in today's video. Love seeing your work, so thanks again. That's it for me. I can be found online at BeeJayDeL.com as well as on Instagram, X, all the socials at BeeJayDeL. So let's retro a go-go, and until next time, keep creating.